Good evening, everyone. Uh, Myself Suman Verma. I'm your botany faculty. So today we will be learning about ecosystem. Okay, our concept is ecosystem. Now let us start. So first let us talk about what do you mean by ecosystem. Okay, so ecosystem is nothing. This term was given by this term ecosystem. Ecosystem. This term was given by Tansley. Okay, this term was given by Tansley. Now, it is functional unit of nature. Ecosystem is called as functional unit of nature. Okay, that means this ecosystem contains the interaction between abiotic factor and biotic factor. This is considered to be as ecosystem. Now we have different types of ecosystem. We have different types of ecosystem. So majorly we have three types of ecosystem. Okay, types. So how many types we have? Majorly three types of ecosystem we have. Okay, first is terrestrial. We have terrestrial ecosystem. Next we have man-made ecosystem. Then we have aquatic ecosystem. Now terrestrial means it will come like grassland, the forest, the desert area. All this will come under terrestrial ecosystem. Okay, now man-made ecosystem examples are aquarium, crop fields and all. Okay, next aquatic ecosystem will contains pond, lake, whatever the water resources. Okay, that will be considered under aquatic ecosystem. Now there is a term called as stratification. There's a term called as stratification. So what do you mean by stratification? What do you mean by stratification? So stratification is nothing but vertical distribution of different species occupying different levels. Okay, so we have different levels. Okay, so these level, the distribution of these species in different level, this arrangement is called as stratification. Okay, this is called as stratification. Now, stratification is not only present in terrestrial ecosystem, but also it is present in aquatic ecosystem as well. Okay, aquatic ecosystem as well. Now, so components of ecosystem. What are the components? What are the components of ecosystem? First, we have productivity. Productivity. Second, we have decomposition. Third, we have energy flow. And fourth, we have nutrient cycle. Okay, these are the components of ecosystem. First, let us talk about productivity. Okay, let us talk about productivity. Now, productivity. Productivity. So, what do you mean by productivity? The rate of biomass production. Okay, so productivity is nothing but the rate of biomass production. Biomass is produced by whom? The plants. Okay, so what is the major ultimate source of energy for plants? That is nothing but sun. Okay, sun. Now because of sun will emit what? Light, right? And these lights are harvested by the plants will harvest the light from the sun, and they will do what? The process called photosynthesis. Okay, now under productivity we have different kinds of productivity. Okay, first let us talk about primary productivity. Okay, primary production. Okay, primary production. What do you mean by primary production? Amount of biomass, which is a organic matter, amount of biomass or organic matter per unit area, per unit area in unit time, in unit time. This is during photosynthesis. When during photosynthesis. Okay, now plants 24 by 7 don't show any photosynthesis process, right? Only in the presence of sunlight it is going to show photosynthesis. So during that period, whatever the organic matter is produced per unit area, because in all the area, in terrestrial land also, different places have different amount of trees and all, right? So so where we have more trees, in that area obviously our biomass production will be more compared to the area which have very less biomass, less trees. Okay, so that is called as primary production. Now, under primary production, we have we have GPP. GPP. What do you mean by GPP? So GPP is nothing but gross primary productivity. Gross primary productivity. So what do you mean by gross primary productivity? Rate of production. Rate of production of organic matter. Okay, rate of production of organic matter during photosynthesis. During photosynthesis. Completely. Like whole in the whole photosynthesis process, how much biomass is produced, that is called as GPP. Okay, gross primary production. Next comes NPP. Okay, net primary production. So what is NPP? NPP is nothing but GPP minus R. This R is what? Respiratory losses. So during respiration, what happens? Catabolism happens. That means breakage of carbon bonds takes place. Okay, so for that breakage, what happens? We require some, energy. Yes or no? So that energy, if we subtract, and whatever the energy is remaining, okay, whatever the remaining biomass which is available for heterotrophs, means the animals which are going to consume that plant. So that is called as NPP. Okay, net primary production. Okay, now this NPP and GPP, this will be coming under what? Primary production, right? Now we also have secondary productivity. Secondary productivity. Let us talk about secondary productivity. Secondary productivity. So what do you mean by secondary productivity? Secondary productivity is rate of formation of new organic matter by consumers. Now, obviously, under primary productivity, the production will be done by plants. Now, plants will be consumed by whom? Consumers, like goat, all the herbivores and all, right? So now, when they consume the plant, whatever the organic matter is produced by them, that will be considered as secondary productivity. Okay, now we have one word called as annual net primary productivity of whole biomass is about 170 billion tons of organic matter. Means annually our NPP, means annually how much how much biomass we are consuming, that is actually 170 billion tons. That is actually 170 billion tons yearly. Per year we consume this much biomass. Okay, we consume this much biomass. Now, next let us talk about decomposition. Decomposition. Okay, next let us talk about decomposition. So we know what is decomposition, right? So all the living organism, whenever they die, they have to undergo what? Decomposition. And this decomposition will be done by who? The microorganism, microbes and all. Okay, now so what is the actual definition of decomposition? Decomposition ka actual definition. So decomposition actual definition is breakdown of complex complex organic matter by decomposer into inorganic compounds. Okay, complex organic matter into inorganic matter. Inorganic matter. Okay, or compound. Okay, this is called as decomposition. And during these inorganic compounds are nothing but carbon dioxide, water, and nutrients. These will be considered as inorganic matter which is produced during as a product of decomposition. Okay, now let us talk about oxygen is needed for decomposition. Yes, oxygen is very is needed, which is very important factor for what? For decomposition. Okay, oxygen is needed for decomposition. Okay, raw material for decomposition is detritus. What are the raw materials? Raw materials which are required for a decomposition, those are actually detritus. Okay, detritus. Now, what are the steps of decomposition? Decomposition is a process, obviously breaking down, right? Breaking down of complex matter into simple inorganic matter. Now, what is the process behind this? So, what is our first process? Our first process is fragmentation. Our first product is process is fragmentation. So, fragmentation by what is happening? Earthworm will play a major role. What it will do? Break down the detritus, breakdown of detritus by detrivores. Now, who are this is what? This is detritus. Okay. Now, these has to break down, right, into fragments, pieces. So that will be done by who? Detrivores. Okay. So earthworm is a detrivore. Okay, it's a kind of detrivore. Okay. So this is called as fragmentation. Next, catabolism. Catabolism. Now, during catabolism, what will happen? Again, obviously, during fragmentation, the pieces might be little bigger. So these pieces will be again made into very smaller pieces. But the catabolism is nothing but breakdown only, right? So this breakdown, catabolism, will be taken care by whom? It will be done by fungus and bacteria. Okay, fungus and bacteria. Now, after catabolism, our next step is humification. Okay, humification. So humification is nothing but formation of humus, and humus is a dark material. Okay, it's a dark material, and it is also a reservoir for nutrients. Okay, understood. Next, humus decomposes very slowly. Okay, humus will decomposes very slowly. Now, after humification, our next process is mineralization. Our next process is mineralization. Mineralization is what? Release of inorganic nutrient due to degradation of humus. Now, when humus will degrade, humus formation of humus is humification. Now, humus will undergo degradation, very slow degradation. And during that degradation, what is happening? Minerals are forming, right? So that mineral formation is called as mineralization. Okay, that is called as mineralization. Okay, now let us move forward. Factors affecting decomposition. What are the factors? What are the factors which are affecting the decomposition? First thing, um, just a minute. Okay, okay. Factors which are influencing decomposition. First thing, the organisms which are having chitin. Okay, which are having chitin or what we say lignin. Okay, chitin or lignin, their decomposition rate will be very slow. And whoever have nitrogen, nitrogen, their decomposition will be very fast. Presence of oxygen is very needed. Without oxygen, the decomposition rate will be very slow. If oxygen is present, rate of decomposition will be little faster. And we also need moisture. Obviously, moisture is needed. Next, what we need? Temperature. Temperature. We need a optimum temperature for the for what? For our decomposition to be happen in a good rate. Okay, next, energy flow. Let us talk about energy flow. Now, energy flow. Energy flow. What do you mean by energy flow? Now, sun is the only source of energy for all ecosystem. Yes, sun is the only source of energy for all ecosystem for their for their producers. It might be in the plant, it might be in the aquatic region, it might be in the terrestrial region. What is the major ultimate source of energy? Sun. Okay, now what happened? So obviously, the rays, okay, the sun rays will be taken, absorbed by what? Absorbed by the plant. Now you always remember only 2 to 10% of the sun radiation will be absorbed by the plant for their photosynthesis. Means you can say 98 to 90% is not even taken by the plant. Okay, next, plant capture 2 to 10% of the what we say light ray, sunrise. Okay, now next, producers. Let us talk about producers. Let us talk about producers. Now, who are producers? We already know. Who are producers? Producers are nothing but the plants, right? The autotrophs, okay, which can produce their own food. Who are consumers? Consumers are nothing but heterotrophs, which depend on producers for their food. Example, different kinds of animals. Animals, okay. These animals can directly depend on producers, or indirectly also they can depend on producers. Okay, first let us talk about primary. Under consumers we have primary consumer. Primary consumers are herbivores, means they directly depend on what? They directly depend on producers on plant. Okay, next comes secondary consumers. Secondary consumers. Secondary consumers are actually carnivores. Okay, these secondary consumers actually depend on primary consumers. Okay, primary consumers. Now then come tertiary. Tertiary consumer. These consumers feed on primary carnivores. Okay, means for on secondary consumers. Okay, example, tiger, lion and etc. Okay, now let us talk about food chain. Let us talk about food chain. Let us talk about food chain. Food chain. Okay, so we know what is a food chain. A food chain, first we have different kinds of food chain. First type of food chain is actually grazing food chain. Grazing food chain, which is GFC. Grazing food chain is it will start with producers and it will end with consumers. Okay, so we have a good example in our NCRT. We have grass who are producers. These grass will be consumed by goat, which are actually primary consumers, and these goat will be consumed by human beings, which are actually secondary consumers. Okay, straight food chain. Now this is actually grazing food chain. Okay, now we have one more food chain, again one more type of food chain, which is actually detritus detritus food chain, DFC. Okay, DFC. Now here the food chain will start with a dead matter. Okay, dead matter. Example, dead rat. Dead rat. These dead rat will be eaten by whom? Bacteria and fungi. And these bacteria fungi will produce nutrients, and again these nutrients will be taken by plants. So this is detritus food chain. Okay, this is a detritus food chain. Now next, yes, now let us talk about trophic levels. Okay, let us talk about trophic levels. What are trophic levels? So first thing, specific place of organism in food chain. We have a specific place for living organism in a food chain. Okay, so we have first the bottom. The first bottom will be just a minute. I'll draw it neatly. First we have primary producers. Okay, primary producers we have. Okay, then we have consumers. Primary consumers we have. Okay, then our next level will be secondary consumers. Okay, then third will be our tertiary consumers. Okay, so now for primary production. Okay, primary production, what is happening? So primary production, what is our example? Plants. Now we only know plant will use only 2 to 10% of sunlight from the what do we say, sun. Okay, now from primary producers to primary consumers, only 10% energy will be given. Okay, only 10% energy will be only 10% of the energy will be transferred to the next level. So again, from what we say, primary consumer to secondary consumer, again only 10% of energy will be what we say given. Okay, from again secondary to tertiary, only 10% of the energy will be given to the other tropic level. Okay, so this is called as 10% law of energy 10% law of energy transport given by what this 10% energy flow is given by which scientist? Lindemann. Okay, Lindemann. Okay, now next let us this is these are tropic levels. Okay, now let us talk about what we say, yeah, just a minute. Okay. Let us talk about standing crop. What do you mean by standing crop? So standing crop is nothing but mass of living material at a particular time. Okay, so um so at a particular time, we can say at a particular time interval, mass of living material which is measured. Okay, that is called as standing crop. Now measured in, how we can measure that? We can measure it by biomass, or by number, or by area. Okay, or by area. So that is called as standing crop. Next, let us talk about ecological pyramids. Let us talk about ecological pyramids. Okay, now we have different types of pyramids. Let's first study about pyramid of number. Okay, pyramid of number. Now pyramid of number is like this. Okay, so obviously the bottom one we already know it, these are producers. That means we know that, right? In a particular area, number of plants will be more. Okay, number of plants will be more compared to any living organisms. Okay, so that, for example, here we have around 5 lakhs plant. Okay, now let us talk about primary consumers. So how many consumers will be there? Only 70,000. Okay, numbers will be, the population will be high, but compared to producers, the primary consumers will be less in number. Again, compared to primary consumers, secondary consumers number will be less. It will be around 35,000 only. Again, when we come to tertiary consumers, again the number will be decreased to only 3. Only 3. Okay, now will be only be 3. Now this is pyramid of number, because as the tropic level is as we are going up to the tropic level, the number is decreasing. Okay, now next let us talk about pyramid of biomass. Okay, pyramid of biomass. Pyramid of biomass is also same like this. Okay, biomass. Pyramid of biomass. So even that will be similar like the previous one, like this. But here, what will happen? Primary producers will create more biomass. Obviously, trees are more, so obviously they will produce more biomass. Okay? Yeah. Yes. Next, obviously, number of primary consumers will be less, so they will produce lesser biomass compared to primary producers. Okay, so the as we are going up, even the measure of biomass, production of biomass will also decrease. So this is our pyramid for biomass. Okay, now we should always points we need to remember. Tropic levels are actually functioning level, not the species. Okay, so we are not considering each tropic level as one species. There can be different types of species in one tropic level. Okay, so tropic levels are not considered as the species. Okay, now So this is about the pyramids. Okay. Now, um, so as per our NEET syllabus, we only have concept till here. And if in this concept, if you have any doubts, you can ask me. Okay, I'll be clarify your doubt. Okay. Now, so I hope everyone are clear with the concept. I'll see you in the next class. If you have any doubts, please comment below. Okay. Bye bye.